Welcome again to another edition of the Youth Roundtable. Good afternoon to you, our viewers. My name is Masawi Ivan, and I'm privileged to be your host today. Today, we are privileged to have a panel of ladies and gentlemen. From my farthest left is Sarah Kojo, a law student of the Islamic University in Uganda. You are most welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
The IUIU community in Uganda is fasting. You extend our Ramadan greetings from the Center for Constitutional Governance and Civic Space TV to the fasting community. Closest from Sarah, coming towards my right, is Mr. Kizito Sazi. Mr. Kizito Sazi is a programs coordinator at SHISOA's Youth Advisory Board, that is under the Restless Development Program. You're most welcome to the show. We are really privileged to have you as our guest today, given your organization deals with issues affecting the young people. You're most welcome.
Thank you, Ivan, for having me.
Closest to me is not a new face, someone we are really familiar with. Melody Nakalans from the Hill. When we mean the Hill for purposes of this show, it is Makerere University. You are most welcome.
Thank you for having me, Ivan.
Yes, today our topic, still we are from commemorating Women's Day last, was it a Sunday or was it a Saturday? Saturday. The Women's Day comes into existence by a UN declaration of 1975. Uganda, which marked 8th March of every year as the International Women's Day. Today, our topic is going to lie along the lines of the role of youth in gender equality. First, starting with you, Sarah. The Islamic University in Uganda, that I know very well, has a gender mainstreaming office, just like any other university in the country. Where do you think, as a university, before I will get to the national perspective from Mr. Saz, the efforts of Women's Day, or the efforts that government has tried to put in place to see that the issues of gender sensitivity are well balanced? How do you make your assessment of affairs?
Okay, at the previous moments, first of all, I'm very proud to be born a woman in this day and era, because being a woman before 1995 Constitution of Uganda was one of the hardest. It was more of a life sentence for a woman. And I am glad that I have been born in this day and era where the government and organizations have come up and they are fighting for rights of gender. First of all, coming back to the topic is mainly the role of the youth in bringing in gender equality. And the first question you ask yourself when you think of gender equality, you wonder, is it really a problem? And if it is a problem, how are we going to solve it? First of all, I am a feminist. I know most people will be like, when they hear someone say that a person is a feminist, they think they are against family values. But if you research the dictionary meaning of the word feminist, is a person who supports equality of genders. Now, the status quo of women, the position of women before the 1995 Constitution here in Uganda was the lowest, whereby if the beauty of these issues is that they're not ghost, like they're not foreign, like we've seen these issues and they have been documented, unfortunately. Now, if you look at for example, the Marriage Act before they revised it once more, you find that women could not divorce on issues of adultery. Like if a woman was in a marriage and the man or husband committed adultery, the woman could not go to court and divorce as a ground. It wasn't a ground for the woman. You find that in terms of law, succession, women or the girl child could not inherit their parents' property when the parent died. And I'm glad that the law has evolved. I'm glad that people like the FIDA case came in and they started fighting and advocating for the rights of women in society. Women, I understand where the gender inequality arises from. Like in the society before the technology advancement and everything, things were based on strength, and you had to be physically strong in order to survive. And biologically, women are actually the weaker sex. The feminist in me is sad to say that, but it is the truth. Women are the weaker sex biologically. And you find that previously, because strength was what could sustain you, like it was what you needed to survive the attacks from animals, you know, neighborhood and stuff, women were reduced to a more domicile role in the house. Like they had to take care of the kids and stuff. But the reason why that was terrible is because when you put a man in power and you expect that person in power to make laws that are going to favor the minority, it is not something that is going to happen. So of course they made laws that were not going to favor the minority, which were the women, because they were considered, you know, some families in African tradition looked at women as the property. You would give birth to a child, and a girl child, and they call you rich simply because you were going to get more cattle. I don't know if you get it. And some families, like for example, if you look at if you look at the West, for example, they would allow marriage within families. Like you could marry your cousin's cousin in order to keep the wealth in the family. So you find that the status and the position of a woman in such kind of a society was very terrible. But now we evolved. Women started advocating for better rights. Like they wanted to have a say in their financial independence, because a poor woman is a very weak one. Like the moment you're poor, you don't have a say. You can't say anything. You're nothing, literally. That's why growing up, you would hear many stories about women being like, the husband died, and then the relatives came in, took all the property, and the widow and the kids have nothing.
They even took over the widow herself.
Exactly. Mukamuganda in Lusoga, Omwenda, Twala Utwale. You know, like it was a very terrible state for a woman to exist in. But then women stood up. They started speaking up in different organizations. And I am glad that when technology came, as Africa, we were more of adopting the policies from abroad. That's why by the time we got our independence in 1962, we actually had a female representative in parliament. And our country, Uganda, was one of the first countries to have a vice president who was actually a woman.
In Africa.
In Africa. It is so nice, and it is a very it's a very good step in the right direction. Now, going back to your question that I am from Islamic University in Uganda, of course, women's rights they are valued.
We shall come back to that. Mr. Saz, let's pick up from the International Women's Day message. The theme for Uganda was Accelerating Action for Gender Equality, which calls for bold and strategic interventions towards the gender equal future. The word gender in Uganda seems to strike only women. I don't know where it reflects me and you, but whenever it sounds out, as civil society, you have seen the strides, you have participated heavily in investing in seeing that the country achieves gender sensitivity, especially via your program objectives, your interventions. as an organization. Me and the viewers, we would like you to share with us, giving, seeing, or giving a perspective to our theme as a country of accelerating action for gender equality. Where do you see this, especially in the lives of the young Ugandans, whom 0 to 17 make up around 50.5% of the population, 18 to 30 around 22.7% of the national population? Give your assessment of the film, but also as civil society, where do you see the position of achieving the bold and strategy interventions of a gender equal future?
Wow. Thank you, Ivan, for that. To start by first responding to the concern you raised, whether gender just means women, and you're concerned because it's skewed.
I thought I used to have a comrade called Gender Nance. I thought gender is everything called female.
Okay. So from a programmatic perspective, when you speak about gender, three things come: women, girls, and children. And so, and to link it quickly to what Sarah talked about women being weak, when we speak about these three categories, they are vulnerable to the circumstances, to the gaps in the social and economic spectrum. And so when we speak about gender, all these other related interventions, we're speaking about efforts and strategies of advancing a fairer, a more equitable and sustainable environment for these categories of people to thrive. Why? What makes them vulnerable is because these have unequal access to land, capital, and power. And from our economic context, we have a dominantly agricultural economy, okay? So women should have access to land, because without land, they are homeless, but they also don't have food for the children. Also, 70% and more of the labor in our agriculture sector is provided by women, And so when you speak about gender, these are very salient issues to be addressed. So to target along with the theme, the strategic focus of our country level Women's Day celebrations, when we say accelerating interventions or strategies to advance equality in that perspective, it's linked to what Sarah has spoken about. Gender has both quantitative and qualitative concerns. So on the one hand, the country has made strides in ensuring that we have more women in representation, women representatives in parliament.
We shall look at effectiveness and relevance later.
So on that, you have a quantitative issue addressed, okay? We have more voices. They are sitting those places. But now, if we are speaking about accelerating, we say, okay, how do these numbers and the existing interventions, how do they speak now to the gender realities of the day? So the country has a gender and demographic dividend by the fact that 70% of our population is young. A young population. So when you have young people, you have children. So when you're making strategic concerns, strategic investments, the country should be looking at, okay, how do we plan better for these young men and women who are coming in? How do we address issues like employment? How do we address issues like housing? How do we address issues like health? You know, do we have a health insurance guarantee that a young woman or a young girl who has gotten pregnant in Iganga or in Madiokolo, they can access health services, and we can know that we can cut down maternal mortality. So as we reflect, the theme would point to that fact that, okay, we have met some quantitative strides, but how do we correlate that with now the existing demands from this young population? And of course, when you're speaking about that, it raises issues about existential gender issues like climate change, for example. How, as a country, how are we strategically addressing this climate reality, for example, through green entrepreneurship, green jobs, so that as these very many unemployed youth, women, and children come in, how do we guarantee a future for them? Why? When you look at, for example, the climate crisis, majority of it is caused by people who are privileged, the factory owners, you know, the people who drive cars in Kampala, okay, the people who pollute the environment. Maybe they have insurance cover, but the women and girls in the slums in the city, but even in the upcountry villages, do not have that sort of social protection, okay? And so the strategic investments the country has to make at this moment is to go beyond, okay, we've had the quantitative investments, we have women ministers, vice presidents, even we have a ministry of gender, right? But now, how do we come up with interventions that specifically address the gender concerns of the day? So if anybody just skews the discussion to just women, somehow you lose focus. But why do women come to the forefront at the end of the day? It's because they bear the biggest responsibility. They tender the homes, they provide the labor and agriculture, okay? They do what government has omitted. The omissions of government on the gender omissions, most of it is taken on by women. So reflecting about that, we need to think about what the existing investments have done and how they feed into the future, and to tag that into the work that civil society does. So government cannot do this alone. The task is too big, and so there we need collaborative efforts,
Partnerships.
partnerships with the private sector, with civil society, to address existential concerns like labor. If you're going to look at employment, the government jobs are very few compared to the number of
Close to
graduates.
500,000 the jobs in government.
That cannot absorb the about 40K graduates who come out every year. Okay? You can't. But how would you address it? Ensure that the private sector is empowered, the CSOs which are there in the grassroots to promote some entrepreneurial and community, because CSOs do community organizing, you know. So they should be we collaborate with them to ensure that we strategically achieve this. Of course, while government has made efforts from a legislative perspective and giving a very conducive environment, it also now learns from how we in the CSOs do it, okay? And it picks up best practices on how best to engage and address those issues. So when we say want to voice out issues, if we have youth coalitions, okay, youth MPs, if you have youth MPs, how do they feed into the things that we are doing, okay, so that when they get there, they speak to the realities. So one of the things that we do, for example, at Restless Development, we have the National Youth Working Group that brings together all CSO actors to have conversations about youth work. And we would now think that in such platforms, we engage government to respond to some of the issues raised. And so it's a communication, you know, it's not us against them, but collaboration to ensure that equality is advanced, you know. So for now, that's what I would reflect about the theme. If we say strategic investments that are related about gender, let us reflect about youth, children and women. Not just praising ourselves, okay, we have these 100 plus women MPs. No. How does that speak to the realities of the day? Has that reduced unemployment? Has that reduced domestic violence? Has that addressed the climate realities of the day? If it has done or not, then we reflect and we see how best to advance. So those would be my thoughts about the national theme.
Thank you very much, Mr. Saz. Coming to my friend here, Melody. Government in the past experienced a need to see that the gender sensitivity and the gender question is well addressed. It set up some interventions which included seeing that they gazette offices at every level addressing the issue of gender sensitivity. In institutions of higher learning like Makerere University, there is a gender mainstreaming office. In the Ministry of Education, there were even privileges to the girl child by an extra 1.5% points during applications to university. And really some of these have bared fruit, because if you look at the turnover of women not only in public service but politics and even civil society, I think civil society today is led by the strongest women in the country. When you look to the political atmosphere with people like Winnie Byanyuma and then our Nabanjas around, how I want you to give an assessment of these interventions, especially from the education perspectives. How have they helped school dropout? When I was at university, one of the most disturbing news to hear was sexual exploitation for marks. How have they contributed? How have these interventions contributed to seeing that the issue of gender, especially among the young people, is well achieved?
Okay, thank you, Ivan. So basically, like he was saying, gender equality is not only for females like most people think. Most times when someone stands up to say gender equality, people think we are talking about the girl child. At one point, I thought I should have become a feminist because I'm a very radical person when I'm talking about things that I like. But I reached a point and I'm like, okay, so what then happens to the boy child at the end of the day? Are they going to get neglected? If we say we are having a 1.5 for the girls, but the girls are literally accessing the same education with the boys. Notice that reasons for this were justifiable anyways. Girls first stay at home, girls maybe go through menstruation and things like that, and it was very good. But notice that times keep changing, and maybe these things need to be changed and rethought over time. In the education system, in the recent graduation at Makerere, we had about 50-something% females, 53% females graduating, and the rest to the males. What does that point to? It means that apparently the boy child has sort of been left out at one point. It's not only in the education sector, but things to do with empowerment. Notice that he works in civil sector, but the civil sector basically wants to see how the girl child is going to thrive. But what happens to this boy child that is taking drugs at the end of the day? This is the male that is going to marry your daughter off tomorrow. So it means actually your interventions at one point are not going to yield because you have left a certain sector not attended to at the end of the day. Notice that they say maybe, okay, we have seen interventions happening, girl child is being addressed, and it is not a bad thing. But what then happens to the other side? That's the question. Feminists will say we do not care most times. For them, they want to see the girl child thriving. But what then happens to the boy child is my biggest question. And every time I see something to do with gender equality, I am like, okay, what happens next? On Women's Day, I was in Imbara, and a programs lead for Debate Network Uganda. So we do debates for the young children. So on Saturday, we had primary children and secondary students in different regions. We're in Bushenyi and Imbara. But if you see how many girls that attend those debates and how many boys show up at the end of the day, it shows you that actually more attention is being paid on the other side. It's not a problem that it is being paid there. But what then happens on the other side? In the education sector, if 1.5 points were given to the girls, in 1990s, we are about 3 decades away from that. Are you saying that the situation is still the same? And even when we have seen interventions happening in the education sector, are girls themselves benefiting from it? Is it being achieved to the maximum? First of all, I was questioning what then happens to the boys, but also I'm looking at the practicality of these things at the end of the day. If you notice what happens in the gender equality circuit all the time, is that people that can access these services, people that are in Kampala, people that are close to Nabanja, are the people that are going to achieve from these things at the end of the day. People that are close to a certain office to do with gender mainstreaming are people that achieve from them. What then happens to a girl in Wududa who doesn't know that there is even a gender mainstreaming office in their district? Those are things that we need to question. We still have a lot of teenage pregnancies happening. We still have a lot of school dropouts happening. We saw something like girls were being given menstrual cups, but did everyone access those menstrual cups? And do they even know how to use them at the end of the day? There is still a lot of things to question in this entire process of gender equality. It's not about that women are being empowered, but are we seeing all women getting empowered? Or even after 30 years, even after 40 years, we are still facing the same problems of girls dropping out of school, girls getting raped, and things like that. Like I had said earlier, when I talk about rape, notice that the person going to rape your daughter at the end of the day is a man who doesn't know that rape is actually bad, but for them, because they feel like their sexual libido is high, then they go on and do some of those things because they don't know what it means at the end of the day. They just go with a 10-year-old and that is okay for them. So most of these things happen because one part of the problem is left out. What happens in civil society, they make sure that they attend to things that are immediate but forget things that happen in the long run. Notice that empowerment has happened, but it has happened on one side. What happens on the other side? The other day, I also work with MEMPRO. We were in West Nile, and these people basically do, because it is a mentorship program for young women, these people basically focus on girls. But I was challenging them and I'm like, okay, what then happens to the boys in West Nile? Are you going to keep them here and take only the girls to school and give them all that they need? What is then going to be of the boys whom you have neglected at the end of the day? And also the practicality of what you do, because if you leave one person unattended to, they will maybe infect the other individual that you have helped at the end of the day. Yeah, that is my view.
Mr. Saz, since you're in civil society, restless development being an international NGO, you help me pick on the question of sustainability. But now I think since we have laid the platform for our topic, and we shall be joined later to get a policy and a political perspective, where does, looking at the theme that the government set up on the International Women's Day, I think it was Kiboga Chankwans, in Chankwans, looking at the theme, is it sustainable, first of all? Because when we look at our history, it is very true, the government has made a lot of achievements, but I say that at a certain level, maybe you can also as well assess the effectiveness vis-a-vis how relevant it has contributed to the shaping. But looking at the issues Melody points out here, deep, is it a decorative agenda that we have covered on the top, but deep inside in the roots, there is still a lot of undone work to tackle? I believe as people in civil society, you come across these challenges on your day-to-day basis.
Sure. I'm not speaking for government.
No, civil society. Speak for civil society. I will get my guest who will speak. Sure. The policy may be objective of it.
Sure. One of the things to start on a positive note, we need to, I think it would be fair enough to appreciate the fact that development problems are complex, very compounded, and no single intervention can solve all problems just one day, even if it's a 5-year or 10-year program. But the idea or the principle of being dynamic is very vital. So when you look at the interventions that have been advanced to achieve gender equality, even from a government perspective, you would say they would be justifiable back in the days, because if we're dealing with, for example, illiteracy, which was very pronounced, 1997, so you roll out UPE, and now you look at the transition rates from maybe UPE, okay, into secondary. Say, okay, after P7, what happens? Then we need USE, okay? It comes in, and then you have public universities. Somehow, it speaks to an incremental approach to solving social problems, and it's also what happens in even in the CSO world. So when a program is rolled out, most of those programs back then address the most urgent problem. Okay, so if teenage pregnancy and early marriages and girls not going to school, these are very pronounced social problems, because if you don't address that, it can lead into compounded multiple effects.
Secondary effects.
Yeah, but my friend Melody raises something important, which is linking me to the dynamic, being agile in programming.
Agility.
Yes, agility. So if we say, okay, we've addressed the girl child to reduce her vulnerability, our programming should also be sensitive and responsive to that fact that, look, having empowered girls, they are going to be married off by illiterate men, and so if they're being married off by illiterate men, then the good outcomes would have registered would be down, eroded. Okay? And so we become agile, and now we also have inclusive and very coordinated programs. So from the CSO world, I must confess that it's an environment that is very agile. So you look at programs, I will speak from restless development maybe. For one of the programs that we implement in West Nile, It's called the SHISOAS program, which is social, sexual health and economic empowerment supporting out-of-school adolescents. So in this programming model, you have some VSL groups, okay? So girls and boys are empowered, trained to have enterprises, but we also have the ordinary SRH, you know, you advocate, empower health, you do system strengthening, health centers, how do we support them to respond to these gaps. And when we support them, we don't tell them, look, only support, we didn't say out of school girl adolescents. No, even the boys use, you know, these services. So, and we have boys and girls groups, okay? Why? Because we know, we are aware of the fact that the two need to work together. And whenever you like rolling out programs, you look at how does the previous program build into this, and you do it, of course, even in a coordinated way with existing local government interventions, you know. So if we roll out, for example, current government is doing PDM, okay, the parish development model. We know it's an effort. So ours, we should mobilize the adolescents participating in such a program. Say, okay, how do they utilize the knowledge and the other capacities that we've given them to take advantage of now this intervention. So CSOs usually do community mobilization, grassroots building, and part of the biggest thing we do is to create awareness and make structures more ready to benefit from that present intervention and the ones that are going to come, whether from government or other actors. So to speak about, to address the sustainability issue, it only becomes sustainable if you are also very agile, you learn, so you program. Yes, program based on what are the emerging trends. Okay, so okay, if it's been SRH, but climate change is also an urgent problem. Maybe we don't have an existing program to address that, but how do we ensure that this is also integrated into this? And how do we work with sister organizations, you know, to have coordinated efforts of having more impactful outcomes? So it speaks to that reality. And if you are to link it to the theme, if you are reflecting about Women's Day today, you would only say, okay, whatever that we are speaking about, it's only sustainable if it, how do we learn from what we've done, but also how do we feed into the emerging issues. So, for example, innovation, technology, back then it meant taking more girls to school, okay? Today, more of them are educated, but how now do we open new streams, you know? So it only becomes sustainable if it is well coordinated, it is agile.
Sarah, thank you very much. Sarah, before we go for the break, I want to pick this from you. We are discussing the role of youth in gender equality. What has been the contribution of religion and culture?
Thank you. Contribution
I
of
know you
religion
come
and
from,
culture.
you study within a Muslim environment. But my question is not limited to that. What,
it's not limited
yes.
to Islam. So first of all, when it comes to gender, I want to clarify something. It is the discrimination of people on basis of sex. Like you discriminate someone in terms of giving them employment, providing health services to them on basis of sex, and cutting their opportunities short simply because of their sex. Now, I was also wondering, I'm going to get back to role of religion and culture, but I have to get this out. I was also wondering, like, where does that leave the boy child? And to answer your inquisition, the thing is, we are not empowering women to be better than men and to leave the boy child below. We are empowering women to put them on a standard where they can also have a say in the society.
You're scaling.
Now, the role of religion and culture, first of all, it is going to be hard to attain gender equality simply because culture has played a very huge role in the way we think. Like, I was raised in a modern family where still the boy child was considered to be more, where I was raised to learn how to cook for my husband. You know, like, my brothers were out there playing football, learning how to interact with fellow boys, and I was in the kitchen with mom. Because, you know, and I'm not saying that it was bad to learn how to cook, but cooking is a survival skill. And we see that our cultures impact.
This president has a wife who doesn't fetch water, who doesn't cook using firewood.
But still, you find that it is a survival skill that is only taught to the woman, to the girl child. And you find that some cultures even go ahead of preparing young girls as early as 9 years for sexual relations by, you know, pulling, for example, in some cultures in the central, you know, and you find that culture really plays a way and a very huge role in the way.
There has also been the FGM for us from the hills. There has been a key issue.
Yeah. Now, when you talk of religion, don't get me wrong, I'm a very Christian woman. Like, I'm a very good Christian. But
You look.
I have a feeling that religion was made by men for men. And it has been something that I've been struggling with of recent. And that's why I smiled when you mentioned religion, because I was all like, God, what's this? But thing is this, when I read the Bible, I found verses like in the Corinthians, women, it is shameful for a woman to speak. I was all like, God, how? Why would it shameful? Why would it be shameful for a woman to speak? And you find, for example, in Afghanistan, which is an Islam-dominated religion, you find that women are not even allowed to show their faces in public. Iran, like, they are not even, their voices are not even supposed to be heard. And much as we are the government, societies, and everyone has tried to contribute to women being better in society and having a say in society, it is not the same when you reach into Uganda, like deep in the villages. You find that the problems that we were fighting soon after independence are the problems that women are still facing. Like, I even I have a cousin. She was a baby. Like, we used to shower these kids. Recently, I heard she was married with 2 kids, and I was shocked. Because much as we as people who are urban dwellers have these opportunities where the girl child has been empowered, where the parents have been educated and they are trying to educate their girls and their boys regardless of the fact that they didn't get the same level of education. It is not, I cannot go ahead and say the same things for the people living deep in the villages. And I know I haven't traveled much, so I may not know the entire picture of the entire Uganda. But I feel like that when you go deeper into the villages, people who only have one school where they pay 20,000 UPE, and the 20,000 is too much for the parents, you find that they start weighing opportunities. She'll get married. He will work. You find that, you know, such things, and they're the things that we are trying to eliminate totally. Now, when you look at religion, and I'm not only speaking about the Abrahamic religions, maybe I should go into the Hindu, whereby the moment a woman is in her periods, she's not allowed to handle any holy object. She's kept in a room, and it is a culture that is practiced, you know. You find that religion was also, maybe they made it at a time where those values were justifiable at that period. Maybe they didn't have pads of, and maybe it was terrible when a woman was in her period, she was really dirty and stuff. But we've advanced and we are past that level. We are now at the level where women know how to handle their cycles. Women know how to, you know, to show up and put the best foot forward. And I feel like religion is not doing enough to handle and put gender equality of all sexes. Recently, I asked a co-worker because he was saying, I asked him the theme question, and I was telling him, like, what do you think the youth should do? And his answer was saying that women should know their position in society. Very funny, saying it to a feminist. And I was asking, which position is that? Like, which position are now should women have in society? I feel like we should reform our way of raising children. Teach our boys and girls that girl child is not girl child, but they are children. That a woman, that we are no longer showing up as women, but we are showing up as human beings.
Coexistence.
Coexistence. Because at the end of it all, we are all human. It doesn't matter whether you're a boy, it doesn't matter whether you're a girl.
As a Christian, we conclude that we are all born in God's image.
Let me tell you something about religion shortly.
Before we go for the break.
So, I think religion is a little bit problematic. I'm not an atheist either.
Not
but
Panero.
Yeah, all religions I think have a problem. There is a time when Parliament and the government was trying to pass the comprehensive sexuality education thing to put to schools, we had reached a point of implementation because this thing was reviewed over and over again.
I had that question.
To make sure that it suits people, to make sure that the children actually benefit from it, because people noticed the existing trends, teenage pregnancies and things like that. We reached a time of implementation and the church said no. So, over to you.
Let's go for a break. We shall resume our conversation from that point. Thank you.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
You are most welcome from our break. With me on the panel, we are now joined by another panelist in the name of Honorable Katsime Pretty Susan. You are most welcome.
Thank you.
Honorable Katsime Pretty Susan is an aspiring female national youth leader coming from the National Resistance Movement. After, I think we have got a good background of where we wanted to guide our discussion, but in our second segment, we are going to give more of our attention to policy, governance, and the effects or relevance of women empowerment. As a leader, as I've known you in the past, and still as a person who is still aspiring to even serve at a higher level, I want to pick your perspective. I can actually read General Museveni's comment while in Chankwanzi. When we were empowering women, it was deliberate. When we defeated Idi Amin in 1979, I recruited women for our FRONASA, but when it came to the integration, our other partners in the system refused to absorb our women, and they had to be dismissed and go home. We brought them back when we were in charge now in 1986. When we were able to admit them in the army, His Excellency Museveni said, the president justifies the contribution of what we see today in terms of empowerment as something that was very crucial for this country. First, I want to get your objective on his statement, but also your regards towards the issue of policy and implementation. Have we as the young people or as the youth, today do we stand the right policies? I know you are an aspiring legislator that are required to see that we push for the issue of gender equality.
Wow. Thank you so much. As Ali introduced, Katsime Producerson is my name, serving Female Youth Councillor, Kazo District, at the same time aspiring National Female Youth Member of Parliament. General Tubuhabura, or our Jaja, quoting it that way, that before it wasn't easy, and what always makes it hard in the start is that not everyone will understand why you want it to go that way. Not everyone will understand the background desire why you're actually advocating for women empowerment. But well, as a few didn't support it during the Fronasa times, they thought maybe these women were coming to be men. No. Museveni's initial idea was not empowering a woman to be a man. And that's where some lost it. That's where some lost the track. Empowering a woman to be a better version, to come out and bring her contribution on table, to come out and play her role in a better version. She had talked about it. Bringing out the woman to the table, to bring in her contribution. We all believe two heads are always better than one. So the same way we believe a male gender plus a female gender will actually come out with a better resolution. So now when we come to the current times where we are having the policies being amended much more in favor of the woman, because probably our leaders feel that it's not yet enough. Why is it not yet enough anyway? Have we concentrated on the average woman who is almost there? Have we forgotten the local woman? Have we concentrated on the girl who is already somewhere? Have we forgotten the girl who is not yet anywhere? Have we concentrated on only the girl? Have we forgotten the boy? That's why it feels, you see, even up to now, after about 40 years, we are still crying for the same. Women empowerment. So which goal is that even after 40 years you feel like the goal is not yet achieved? Which goal is that? Why is it seeming to take long? Is it being misunderstood? Are people not understanding the initial objective for women empowerment? Are the youth on the track? Or probably the youth, we feel like being empowered is being a man. Probably the youth are actually now being lost in this feminist journey. I'm a feminist, and you think being a feminist makes you a man? Can we empower a girl to be a girl and a boy to be a boy? Not empowering a girl to be a boy. Can we first understand our human fundamentals? You understand? What benefits us all as humans? So where is one gender being left behind? Why are the policies not being fair? After calling out for women empowerment, everyone channeled to that direction, women empowerment. So where is the man? Does the man need to be empowered too? Yes. If we leave the boy behind, probably the boy will also forget themselves. They'll forget that actually they have a role to play, because no one is pulling out on them. No one is reminding them. A boy becomes a man by seeing another man. A boy learns from a man how to be a man. But if now both men and women are focused on girl child, women empowerment, So who should this boy learn from now? No one. Because now everyone is focused here. We come to education policies, they're all focused on girl child. We come to the employment sector, there it is different actually. Females, an added advantage to female applicants. Scholarships, added advantage to female applicants. Hey, so where is the man? Why is the policy not balancing? Why is the gap? Do you understand? Are we really understanding so well the concept of empowerment? Who should be empowered? We as the youth, are we understanding this so well? Again, we may sit here in a panel where we have 2 gents and 3 ladies, whereby the gents are saying we need fairness in this empowerment game. Do you understand? We need fairness in this empowerment game because they feel boy child somewhere has no one to look up to. No one cares. And before you noticed, here we are having a bunch of empowered ladies. Where is the empowered man? Where is the empowered boy? Government puts it up. For example, right now we have 5 parliamentary youth positions where we have the 4 regional positions where both male and females compete favorably. Whoever wins it takes it. Then after that, we have the 1 national female youth seat, strictly for females. Meaning if none of the females makes it on the 4 regional seats, then probably we shall still have a female on the national seat. But are the youth really understanding the reason why all these were put in place? Or they think it was just to join the parliament and eat cough, like I told one mother, let's say it. Are the youth understanding why these were put in place? To become the real ambassadors of the empowerment change. To become the real ambassadors for the change that we want to see. But how many are willing to be so? How many have understood the game, actually, the real need for empowerment? You understand that? So that's why our president is saying before they didn't like it, but after now getting in charge, after getting the power, we brought them back. Probably he had seen the secret in women empowerment. He had seen the need why we should have a balanced board. Because everyone has their specific special capabilities of what they can offer to the table. And so no one should be left behind. But you being brought from behind doesn't mean you're coming on top now to be the man. Being empowered in your women, in your female gender, in your special capabilities. Like tapping into your special abilities. Not anyone being a hindrance to your special abilities. Not anyone keeping your special gift untapped him. So that's why M7 says, we still brought you back because we knew the need. We knew why we need you on table. And that's why the policies right now, we are at the age, we're the verge of really losing out on the boy child. And the policies haven't looked into that. It's a few individuals who are saying, hey, look, before you notice as we are running after this, we are losing out on this. So now it's the time we now get both the genders onto the track and we can balance the game.
I want to pause you, Honorable, at that point. I want to pick something from Mr. Saz. For the years ever since I started understanding, I have not seen any other society invest in gender in Uganda here more than civil society. At least me as an individual, I have proof that he has invested more than government in seeing that issues of gender equality are addressed. Key of the things I want us to interest ourselves are education, we would say wealth creation, but there the topic will become longer. But education and health. She has given a clear perspective on the issue of representation, but we shall come back to assess its effectiveness, because its effectiveness is as a result of all the other factors of investment and intervention. Today, actually, when you look at the empowered women like my sister Melody here, when you talk about empowerment, they think you're demeaning them. Women were already born empowered. It was just a mindset. coming to you, give your assessment on where do you think as a country, if we prioritize the investment, because part of the key issues that led to the gender emancipation gap in the past were involvement in education, was access to quality education, access to quality health care, access to trade. Women were kept at home. They were not in the... Actually, the reason our economy is still grappling is that maybe we brought women to the economic table late. If you assess that, I come from a region where we are coffee farmers, and because we brought women late, we have never caught up with Brazil. Yet Uganda had capacity to do so. What is your take?
Well, it is somehow a complicated thing, but to go with the facts, by the fact that we are a dominant agrarian economy, and the statistics are clear, 70% plus of the labor is provided by women, but we also have a youthful population. So in agriculture, land is reducing, but the people are increasing, but land is not increasing. It's in the reverse. So one of those best sectors that need to be earmarked and strategically invested into is the agricultural value chain. Because you have most of the people, that's what people are used to doing, but it also gives livelihood to many of them. Now, when you take a value chain approach, one, you have the right people. Now, the women who are vulnerable involved in that, but also, if you transform the way you're looking at it, open up new streams, marketing, innovation, transform agriculture from just the whole and farm level, and open up new entrepreneurial streams, value addition and others. Why? That is going to solve one fundamental problem, which is economic empowerment. When you talk about health, education, everybody should be able to access this and afford this. So while you speak about what the CSO does, of course it's not...
I've witnessed,
yes,
I don't speak.
Yes, you've witnessed. Why? Because the vulnerability has been so high, and so the CSOs fit in.
Almost half of Uganda would have died of AIDS if there was no civil society.
Okay, but now past that, now that you have an educated population, women have gone to school, you have very many female graduates. The question is, how do we now make strides to ensure that we transform,
modeling.
Yes, we remodel, and we ensure that this sector reduces the vulnerability, of women, girls, and the youth, in that. So in my assessment, it's one of those things, because it will solve all the other problems, because agriculture is one of those sectors that has a multi-sectorial. You use roads for agriculture, okay? There is innovation in agriculture. There is agricultural extension, there is that stream, and all this. So once it is strategically looked at, it could solve some of the issues. But fundamentally, whichever sector you look at, the fundamental question to address is dignified engagement. It could be of women, of youth. The issue is, whatever people are doing, are they earning something that gives them, yes, commensurates to the livelihood realities of the
impact.
day. So what people earn,
Impact.
what people eat, where people sleep, and when you look at our economic canvas, the sector would give us that. Agriculture sector, if it's looked at it in a coordinated manner, it would, because it dictates health outcomes. It dictates people eat food that is poisoned, you'll have health issues. But also again, if you empower them, they will get private Medicare without relying on, so you need to, that's what I would propose, that could solve some of the things and foster how do we transform. And as you bring that to the apex, who has that solution? You need young people. You need the youth, because what do the youth have?
Engaging.
They are tech savvy. They have the skills. They are educated. They are entrepreneurial. They can think of streams beyond the farm. They will tell you they now have AI. They can market. So the issue is government or whoever actor has to bring youth to the programming table. Bring young people, because first of all, they know the problem, and also they have the skills to solve the problem. So whether it's government or CSOs, that should be the direction to take. Traceless development, that's what we do. We know that we don't just sit in these rooms and think of programs. We cooperate with them. We ask them to audit our interventions. And we invite other partners also to consider that pathway. Yeah, so you look at what our government is doing, say, how many young people are there for us? And okay, and those ones who are there, what is it that they significantly bring to the table that represents the youthful constituency? So that should be the conversation, because that will address the issues of teen pregnancy, issues of unemployment, and any other thing. So those would be my opinions.
Thank you very much. At least you show how the politicians will do a lot of things by accident. Before I come to you, Sarah, let me just get something from Susan. As a serving leader in the local government, especially at Kazo district, I just want you to point for me the three most outstanding challenges that you think are hindering youth participation in gender equality, before I address my question to my fellow Christian at the other end.
Well, the three top leading challenges, or what I would call hindrances, to youth participation in gender equality. One, I'll call it ignorance. What you don't know, you don't know. What you don't know, you won't advocate for. What you don't know, you won't benefit from it. You understand? So most of the youth, that's what I told you, are we focusing on the average youth who are already out here in Kampala? Are we focusing on the youth down there in Kazo, some village somewhere?
Who want to watch this show in Runyankole?
Or who won't even know that your data can help you watch something important on phone. Yes, they have gotten the access to the phone, but do they know what they can use their phone for? Are we speaking to a youth who knows that when I get pregnant, I can come back to school? Are we speaking to the youth who can offer a safe learning environment for teenage mothers? Or if you've gotten pregnant, it is done for you. You step back to school like this, and even the headmaster is showing other teachers, look at her.
Stigmatization.
You get no safe space for teenage mothers. That's a gender place. While the teenage fathers are back to school safely. You get, no one is pointing at him like he's the one who impregnated the other girl. No one. But the teenage mother accessing school, it will require probably a new school, which they can't afford. So where is the future of this girl? So the youth who are already empowered, can they be the ambassadors of empowerment? Can they be the ambassadors of gender equality to their fellow youth, those who are already empowered? Can they speak out? Can they pioneer that and help the youth down there to come up and understand the importance of gender equality? The second challenge would be lacking anyone to copy from. The already empowered ladies, we are in Kampala.
Now I pose my question to my fellow Christian. What is the role of parenting in seeing that youth are modeled for the issue of gender equality?
Parenting is a very, very great consideration that everyone should consider when they are raising their kids. You know, in Uganda they have a saying, akacha mama bera, okagololo okolache, okamenya bumenya. Something in Uganda is a very nice saying. So they are trying to tell us that when you raise a kid right and you raise them in the way they should go, you will actually raise them to be good people in society. Now, at first, when we were still young, they would tell us, you're the leaders of tomorrow, tomorrow
And
is
eventually you've become.
Now we are the leaders, we are the youth, we are now the voices, we are the parents in all our different spheres, and we are raising children. But if you refer to Robert Greene in 48 Laws of Power, I think it's Law 44, where he says that change is not something, when change comes abruptly, people will actually fight it even when the change is good. So he said that change is a gradual process. So if we want to see active change, where men and women, boys and girls are empowered in their different areas of life, we start from down below. We start from raising them as children. We don't raise children, boy children, telling them that for you, you can go play, your sisters will cook. We raise them to come and cook. Not to raise girl children to prepare life for their husbands, because marriage is not the end of life. Even when you're a married woman, you're still a career woman. Now modernity brings in that you're married, and you're not only married, but you're also a CEO, you're somewhere in life, and you're supposed to present yourself in all those ways.
Proper leadership.
Exactly. And when you look at the gender empowerment, now the question has always been that now what happens to the boy child? We have empowered the women. What about the boys? The problem is still in parenting. Reason being is that we are empowering women, right? And women are all like, we are also people. You don't have to beat me in marriage. We are two adults. We are married to each other. How can you beat a fellow adult? That's domestic violence, right? And the boy is all like, but my father. You know, they grew up seeing their parents hit their mothers, and they grew up seeing this kind of violence, seeing the kind of privileges, whereby the mother and father were both working, but the mother would come back, cook, then the father comes, puts football and watches. And that is like, the boy feels like that is also supposed to be my life. But now we have created a modern society whereby if you were to get the roles, the domestic roles of a woman, and you be like, now I need someone to do those domestic roles, as a working person, you will have to hire someone. For example, being a nanny is a paid job, a fully paid job, but women have been doing it for free. What does that mean? Now, when we are parenting kids, we don't only have to parent them as boys, as people who are supposed to just sit, you know. I had a cousin who couldn't even light a matchbox. Very interesting. Very weak, yeah? Couldn't even light a matchbox. Like, if you were to leave that guy home, and we are age mates, if you were to leave him home, he would be hopeless. Simply because they raised him thinking he would get a wife. Not knowing now that the dating gender, now that the dating field is so different, that women no longer assess you according to the money you have. They assess you according to the characters you present, the life skills, the knowledge, the emotional intelligence that you have in handling different problems towards you. And short women say that Satan talks to them every morning to tell them how to disturb people, but that's a topic for another day.
Doesn't talk to
relationships, I invite you, a good coach.
Exactly. So you find that if we raise our boys and if we raise our girls with those old-fashioned and archaic kind of values, we are not going to have family. And that's why they are saying feminism is coming in to break down families. It's coming in to ruin society. But that's a response. That's simply a response to change. What we are saying is that parent your kids. Tell your kids that women, you don't have to hit a girl simply because you're stronger. You don't have to tell the girl child that when a boy hits you, he loves you. That's a very old-fashioned kind of teaching. You get? So raise parents. And I know when I'm speaking to parents, I'm speaking to youth, because most parents are now youth. When I'm speaking to them, I'm telling them to raise their children in a way that supports gender equality. And you may think that the problem is only a problem for the girls, but it affects all of us equally. When you find that the women have been empowered and the boys still have that archaic mindset, you'll find very many bachelors not married simply because they don't have that upbringing to support a relationship. I don't know if you get it. So you raise your kids right.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Coming to you, my friend Melody, you are participating in empowering young people, especially through debate, but still that reflects to the gender equality that you promote when you participate in preparing these people for their future and national responsibility. I picked her on parenting. I want to pick you on the role of education as we close, since time is not on our side. Where do you think the education system should address or punch to close the gaps to see that the youth have a high stake in ensuring their own equality in terms of gender?
Okay.
Then I think you even give your parting remarks, because I've been told time is not on our side, but you have your time.
Okay, great. Thank you. I know how to manage time, and I'll make it short. The role of education, we really appreciate that education has played a great role. If it were not for education, me, Susan, and Sarah would not be here. And I think they agree to that. Because before maybe Museveni came to power, girls didn't know that they were supposed to school. We all thought that at 15 or 13, I'm supposed to go and get married, because that is what I was getting groomed for. But there's something I wanted to tell us today, that gender is a social construction. Society constructs most of these things. Just like the way religion is stated and we follow certain rules, we follow the 10 commandments. That is how gender is. If today we woke up and said that, okay, we have termed females as females, why don't we change the name and make it males? Why don't males become females? Just changing the name, not changing anything. It would still make sense. So notice that most of these things are constructed by society. Gender roles are constructed by society. It means that at a time when we say a female is supposed to cook, they can change from that and go to something else. If we say a man should change, but the problem is that we have a very rigid society where people think that what was should be and will forever be. That is the biggest problem that we have. And like she was saying, that we also have issues like religion and culture that say, okay, this is how it should be, and for us we cannot change because this is how our great grandparents did this. But Ivan asked me about education and how it should be changed. Some things that we study in education are very problematic. You go to class, you're in primary, and they are telling you the roles of a father. There is nothing like roles of a father that a mother cannot do. They're saying that the father is supposed to provide for the family. But they do not even contextualize for us that and show you that the father provides in this and this way. Instead, the mother is the one who then goes to cook and do all these other home chores. It means actually the father is not doing anything. If you go to like West Nile or Northern Uganda, it is women that actually do the provision thing. If you go there, women are doing border, women are the ones digging, women are the exactly everything. They carry the child, and after working, she brings this money to her husband. The husband goes to that pot thing that they do, and they enjoy. So, especially in the primary section, there is a very big problem about what mother and father is supposed to do. I think it is a very problematic thing that they say a father is supposed to provide, but they do not even show the kids how provision should look like. I think if you would have a time and I introduce you to my kids that do the debate, you would appreciate. They are very intelligent and they know how society works. Maybe they would help other children out there understand how society should work. But this thing of like society has termed us like this and then we should keep like this is a very, very problematic thing. Education is here to help for the better. If maybe people would take up that, it would help us change and become a better society in the long run. But importantly, as I conclude, things that have existed before need to be revised over and over again. Society is dynamic and rules and regulations cannot stay the same. Things that we thought happened in 1990s and 1980s cannot be the same in 2025, cannot be the same in 2040. They totally have to change. I think maybe policy and things to do with project implementation need to be worked on over time. Then lastly, we have a honorable on the panel, but I really still have a problem or contestation with youth leadership. I have been on a panel with Ivan and I've told him that over time, we have had leaders and people that represent us. But what happens is that there is a selfish context, and even the guild presidents of Makerere, the ones that I've interacted with, I have told them that you guys are here asking for our votes, promising us this and that. At the end of the day, you will go and then turn into your selfish and turn over and go into your own personal interests and forget what actually took you there. Because they've given you money to go and purchase a car. Now you do not even want to greet people that voted you at the end of the day, things like that. So then if you cannot greet me or say good morning to me, how am I going to tell you my problem as a girl that I did not eat last night? So those are the things that happen. And I told Ivan, I think he's also aspiring for youth MP in his region. I told him that you will reach a time, by the time the 5 years end, you will have forgotten most of us. You will have blocked our numbers or deleted them and not talk to us anymore. And that is most likely going to happen, I will not lie to you. And that is my biggest problem with politicians and maybe youth in leadership. Most of us come from poor backgrounds, but when we get up there, we even forget where we came from and then focus on things that benefit us alone. You're going to get a car, you're going to get a good money, study more, and things like that. But what about the people that voted you that you're supposed to be accountable for? That is it from me. Thank you for having me on the show.
We really appreciate always having you, especially when you crucify me as being your friend. John C. Maxwell states it in the 15 laws of variable growth that change is inevitable. I think in the interest of time, we shall have a closing statement or parting remarks.
Thank you. Let me go straight to Melody as I close. About youth leadership and also all the other leaders.
When they sent us to the dining hall, we don't return to the dormitory to tell them food is ready.
People who
We
voted
remain
them
in the
into
dining.
power,
Wisdom.
forgetting what they're supposed to do and what they should be accountable for. Reason, it comes back to the voting times. We've lost out on empathetic leaders because most times the empathetic leaders don't have actually the cash for buying us. I've told you if Mugisha Munt can allow to be a member of parliament, since being the president has refused, and he comes, and then he gets other 4 people who believes in his thinking, that would challenge that house to something reasonable and human. Why? Their ideas up to now, their tongue has not changed. They still advocate for human fairness.
What happened to Norbert Mao?
And justice. Norbert Mao, I will not discuss that since I'm in an election. Don't make me lose out on the northern part of the country. Well, it comes back to the time that the conditions
he
we
legislate?
put during the time of voting. We usually lose out on people who would actually get back on the ground. So when people reach, power corrupts, money corrupts. So it comes back to the person's fundamental values. If that person was up to eating, right now we can all camouflage. I can greet you every morning. Good morning, good morning, good
But
morning.
your roles and responsibilities are clearly designated.
You get? But the moment you're corrupted by the good morning right now, if you can't even say, And you also be happy, that girl greets me every morning. Be sure I'm on a mission. But I usually tell my voters, if I don't call you, please call me. At this time, I'm overwhelmed. So if I don't get back to you, please remind me. Okay, so that is if we must build something sustainable. But if not, we shall crave these same challenges. Someone is a youth leader at national level. They've not advocated for anything. No regional sittings to say, let us sit with the other leaders on ground and we hear chiche chiliku ground. Nothing like that, you know. You are a GRC, you are the guild president, but you've never sat meetings in different colleges to hear what is actually on ground. I call it collaborative leadership. Listen, Ko, what is on ground? I sit with my people and all they drink is soda. Or sometimes I tell them, get someone to buy a
Let's
soda.
finish
And
that
we see
show
what
and
is
I
happening in
pacify
this
you both.
sub-county. And that's how I've managed my 5 years.
In the interest of time.
You get?
Mm.
Yeah. So it comes back to us. Collaborative leadership. Not going to hunt for money and arcades in one term of office.
Mr. Saz, your parting remarks. First of all, I extend our appreciation that you really responded to our invite and came here. We look forward to hosting you on more engagements. We are really grateful as Center for Constitutional Governance for joining us on the show. Your parting remarks.
Thank you, Ivan, and thanks to the panelists. It's also been a very engaging and learning exchange. From the CSO world, and particularly trustless development, there is a mantra we go with, that nothing for us without us. This is a reminder to my honorable Pretty Susan, I won't forget that. But you see, we need to, like I said earlier, we need to get the young people to the table. Why? Because our participation as young people is built on trust. Okay? Trust. You must know that this person is there for us. Okay? And we should see ourselves in whatever decisions that are taken, whatever policies that are being advanced. And for us to achieve this, we need the young people. We are vulnerable because what we've seen, that the guys up there sometimes don't, give things that resonate to us. But we need to be organized. So youth organizing and collaboration is very important, especially in the grassroots setting. Why? Because when the youth are together, when they are organized, it is very easy to make politicians come down and we ask them to tailor whatever they are advancing to our interests. We can't operate as silos. And the moment that's done, once our voice is aggregated and we collaborate, we can be heard and things can change in our favor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Last, most interesting panelist of the day, my fellow Christian, your parting remarks.
Thank you so much. First of all, I'm glad you invited me to this show. I'm glad I got to hear all these interesting views about gender, and I'm glad I learned something.
I will really today. Have you back on relationships.
But gender, it is a call for me, it is a call for you, it's a call for everyone as long as you're human. It concerns everyone. It is something that if we fix now, our future will be secured. And gender discrimination not only affects gender as gender, it raises other forms of discrimination like racism, tribalism, and we are coming from a history where such discriminations actually led to wars. So what I'm trying to say here is that it is time we all start taking actions. Like in every field that you're in, you can do something to change the world. If you want to change the world, change your society, change your environment, the immediate circles around you, and then it will be something then we can discuss in. Much as the policies have been put in place, they cannot be implemented. Like the government cannot go and implement them on one by one because we don't even have the funds. Wow. But now that the policies are in place, please do whatever you can do in your power to make sure that you can fix the problem and create a better society. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Yeah.
Your-
Ivan, as we move out, can we have the empowered youth go out and be ambassadors of gender equality?
Our viewers, you've heard that from our guests for the show today. My name has remained Masawi Ivan, your host. We do take our appreciation to the production team and Center for Constitutional Governance. We look forward to seeing you again next week, same time, same place. Have a blessed week.